There we go. All right, stream should be running. So,
Yay.
um,
Hello, everybody. Do I
well,
need to adjust my camera?
yeah, it's a little high.
A little high.
Yeah, a little high. So we're gonna have another ad play. Yeah, so it was kind of an interesting conversation, just about the whole idea of the two. And I can't find the conversation, so either he deleted it or Facebook is just being a butthead as far as me being able to find a conversation that I was a part of. Because I even went through and looked at my little, drop down menu thing, and I don't even see, people liked my comment, and I don't even see that aspect of it sitting there. So I suppose it's possible that he deleted it, but
Right.
that just doesn't seem his style, typically.
Agreed. Yay, Tom's already here.
Yep.
Speaking of which, I should put up on Facebook that we're about to go live. Going live. So today's the last day of the Project 86 Indiegogo.
Yes, it is.
Year. Darn it, where'd he go?
I don't want his timeline. I want his... Because when I look at his timeline, I see everybody else's postings as well. And I just want to see Chris's postings. Can I just look at what he's posted?
There should be a way to filter that out up at the top.
Yeah, I'm looking, and I don't see it. It says timeline or about, photos. There's a more, but that doesn't...
It's usually over on the far right, I think.
Let's see, friendship, report, unfriend. This is one thing I hate about Facebook. It's so
The constant change.
ridiculous.
Okay, that's way too long. Oh, you heard something funny?
Sure.
Or at least I think it's kind of funny. We had several bookshelves worth of movies, right? Like
Yeah.
on DVD.
Right.
And so we're trying to figure out a way to better organize things and get better use out of the space in the garage, which is where the bookshelves are. So we decided to finally break down and buy huge CD wallets and empty out all of the DVDs into the CD wallets and then just put the DVDs in boxes underneath our bed,
The
which
cases.
does
Yeah.
which does double duty. It keeps them out of the way so they aren't taking up as much space, and it keeps the dogs out from underneath our bed.
Right.
They were not
Bonus.
happy with us.
Yeah.
They went and started to go into bed. They're like, wait a minute. What did you do? It was funny. So we had to buy four 360 disc cases and one 216 case, and we're going to see if that'll work. We've already filled up 3 of the 4 big ones. So
It's funny
I have a problem.
It's funny how quick all of that stuff happens, I mean, just it's amazing at how fast that stuff all fills up.
Yeah. It is, especially when you have like the deluxe editions of anything where it's got more than one disc, then all of a sudden it's like it doesn't hold two movies, it just holds one.
Right.
Or 3.
You may need to reset your router because you're breaking up a lot.
I'm breaking up a lot.
Like your audio is kind of crackling. It keeps stuttering. I don't know what your bars are. I'm at full bars, it looks like.
I have 3 out of 5.
Yeah.
That's not good.
I have 5 out of 5, but I don't know. It's just weird. Normally we have a straight conversation without a problem, but for some reason it just seems like you're doing the stutter step every once in a while.
Okay, let me see if I move the router around a little bit because that usually makes almost as much of a difference. So I'll be right back.
Okay.
Here's something we hope you'll really like.
So once again, it's 9 a.m. and we are running late. It seems typical for us. Oh, there's a problem with this call. Paul just dropped. We'll just blank that out until Paul gets back and see what happens. Tom, I like that review that you did for the Guardian album, and I'm actually tempted to email it over to David Bach and let him listen to it.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
The better question would be, can I hear you? You there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Cool. Does it sound better?
Well, for right this second, yeah.
Okay.
It completely
I'm getting
dropped.
4 instead of 3. Yeah, I unplugged it.
Oh, okay.
I didn't.
It dropped the call. I was in the middle of, all of a sudden it's like making these weird noises. I look over and you're completely gone. There was a problem with this call. Please wait while we try to get it back.
Right.
But
anyway, sorry about that.
so yeah, I was telling Tom that I was thinking about forwarding his review of Almost Home over to David Bach from Guardian so that he could take a listen to it, because I think it's a good review and I think it encompasses what we've all been feeling about it. And of course, you'll be able to talk more about it after you hear it because you haven't heard it yet. So.
Right. Which I will. And,
yes.
Got to talk to David this week. So
yeah, I saw that. So, yeah, that's
anyway, Are we streaming right now?
We have been the whole time.
Okay. Well, I didn't know if we were still once we got back. But anyway, I wanted to ask you something about the interview and whatnot once we get off the stream.
Oh, after. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Nothing bad. It's just not something I necessarily want to say for everybody. Well, he was an awesome guest, though. It has nothing to do with that. He was very cool.
Yeah.
It's so weird meeting people who you've known of for so long.
Yeah.
You've seen in concert when you were really young.
Yeah, totally. Tim says I can barely hear you, Paul.
I don't know what the deal is.
I don't know.
So weird.
I mean, you sound
hang on,
fine to
hang
me,
on.
but
I bet I know what it is. Maybe I need to turn it up in Skype because my mic is actually hotter than it usually is. But if it's low in Skype, then that isn't going to make a difference. So I'll see about that.
well, and I can increase some volume here too for the stream. But I don't want to do that and have you turn up Skype, because then we might blow them out.
Yeah. And wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, your Skype level shouldn't have changed.
I would think not, but then again, as we've all discovered from time to time. Well, no, it's actually right where it was last time.
All right, let me try some more volume on my end.
Does that make any difference? I can't even bump it up very much.
All right, I've got you at 100% now for the stream as far as the audio is concerned. So,
Got me maxed out on Skype too. So if I'm quiet, I don't know. Maybe it's just me talking quiet. I don't.
Yeah, I don't know. Is that any better, Tim? Let us know if that's any better. The delay is kind of a killer because, we ask the question
really
and then you got to wait 30 seconds before you get a reply, unless you type it.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, we're just chilling, waiting on you guys to get the message.
Yeah.
No rush. Take your time.
Tom says nope.
Dang it.
Not really.
Which is weird because it's usually the opposite problem. I wonder if I goofed on the levels on the board at some point.
I don't know. I mean, it just like normally.
How about now?
Well, you're blowing me out now. Just like it's fuzzy.
Oh, weird. How about now?
That's better, but you still look like it's the same amount that you're sending me.
Well, that's strange. I mean, I upped the end on the board.
Huh.
I'm so confused.
I mean, I can change a setting, but I might have to restart. Let me see here. Max aux boost. That's fine. That's for me, though, not for you. Yeah, I don't think I can make any changes here that would change the way that it sounds there. That's weird.
That is strange.
Yeah, I mean, normally your volume, what you send me is pegged, and it's only running about 50% coming to me. So I don't know if that's a Windows setting that for you transmitting, or is it possible? Let me think here. Can I change a setting in Skype?
Probably not, but I could be wrong. Although what's tripping me out right now is that I can't see anything in the chat at all.
Oh, really?
Really? Man, I'll try reloading it. Maybe that'll make the difference. But I'm signed in. It's clicked on the chat. Ah, there it is. Okay. I'm all good now. I reloaded it, and now it's all good. So,
Okay. Yeah, you're still. I just maxed you out as far as Skype audio is concerned, and you're still
Huh.
only sending me 50%.
Weird. I don't know. I can just speak up. Is that better?
Well, no, because then it gets all fuzzy and distorted.
Oh, well, we can't have that.
Yeah, that's the problem. Is I'm wondering if you turn it up too much, it's going to blast out your recording, and that's going to make that sound bad too.
Right. Well, let me see here. My recording actually I have to where I'm recording fairly low. Let me check and make sure that I'm doing what I think I am. Yeah. Ooh, that is really loud.
Yeah, it's
Whoa.
getting distorted on the top end.
Here. Okay, that ain't right. That should not be that loud. Really now? Come on.
It never
This is just
fails.
irritating. Oh, I know what happened. Okay. When I moved it in Skype, it maxed out my input because Skype it like takes control over my input as opposed to Skype having separate controls.
Yeah.
So it just maxed me out completely. So now that I've gotten it back down to where it probably should be, let me try turning up my mic now because before it was maxed out at 100% and I was turning my mic up. So
Okay.
how's that? Is that any better?
It's still only saying 50%.
But
For
I'm not
the-
getting fuzzy though.
You know, you're not overdriving.
Okay, well that's good. That's good because I can. Yeah. Okay, well we'll do what we can with that, but at least it's not getting sludgy.
Right.
No fun there.
No.
Anyway, okay. Well, note to self: never touch Skype volume ever again.
Yeah. Let's see what.
Doot, doot, doot.
I mean, it's just weird. Normally, you are writing a lot hotter
Right.
to me and what you send me, and it's not where it normally sits, and I'm not sure why.
I don't know either because, like I said, I mean, it should be even higher than it was last time,
Right.
which trips me out.
Yeah, that's the theory. I mean, I'm trying to see like Skype settings and stuff to. Let's see, Skype Wi-Fi options.
Well, Tim says it's better, but still a little quiet. I don't know. Considering that most people do just the audio anyway, and we have I mean, two of our favorite people right now, but still,
Right.
we don't have two people on the stream. So, I mean, you guys can still hear me. So, if that's okay, then I would say we just don't worry about it that much.
Yeah.
Mind you, if it's going to become an ongoing problem, that's a bit irritating, but we'll do what we can with that. Which, by the way, I want you to know that I risked it all because I had to go tell my wife who was watching something on the Roku that I had to reset the internet.
Oh.
No.
Yeah, that doesn't fly well usually.
Yeah.
So, all right. So I guess, are we ready to go?
I think so. I feel like there was something that I saw in my Facebook feed last night that I was like, I should totally remember that. And I don't remember what it was now. So maybe I shared it on my wall. I'll go look while we're, getting things going again.
Yeah.
But, anyway, but yeah, I mean, yeah, for all practical purposes, let's say yes.
Oh, that was that. Okay, don't say.
Oh, that's what it was. Okay, I found it. Never mind. I'm all good.
Okay, cool. All right, well, bring up your DAW.
Oh, and my DAW is ready.
Okay.
DAW ready.
Let me see here. Rock and a hard place. There we go. I got to bring
Which, by the
mine
way,
up.
bought a new keyboard to replace my other one that the keys had gotten to where they were sticking, and it's awesome. It's got so many fun little shortcuts on it, and I got it for $5 at Goodwill.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That's always exciting.
Yeah, it is. It's so
Exciting.
cool.
Exciting times. It's so exciting.
Oh, that's so gross.
Oh, my word. Look
Are you
at
gonna
her.
eat that?
Yeah.
That wasn't a bad place to come in on that because I just totally realized what you were doing. Oh my gosh, look at her butt. Are you going to eat that?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, my. Thanks. That's lovely. Just lovely.
Fantastic, I say.
Oh, man. All right. So let's get rolling, okay?
All right, then.
So let's hit record in the 3, the 2, the 1. It is time once again for the Rock in a Hard Place podcast. My name is Chris Cooner. I am a DJ with Broken FM. You can check us out online at broken.fm. That music intro you just heard was provided kindly by the band Scientist, so we want to say thank you to them as always. And if you don't know who Scientist is, you've been living under a rock, and you should go to iTunes and check out some of their other stuff. It's very cool.
Yeah.
Joining me today, that agreement nod you just heard, that would be my good friend and co-host, Paul Gibson.
What's going on, guys? It's the host of the Christian Raw 20 here, and man, it's so much fun to do this podcast each and every week and hang out with Chris and you guys, especially if you're one of the lucky few who decides to take time out of your morning to join us on the live stream. We love you guys,
Yeah.
and if you haven't done it yet, you totally should.
Absolutely. It's a lot of fun. There's a lot of great chatting going on during the show. They feed us loads of information and ideas and correct our misspeakings as well, which is always nice.
Yes.
That was kind of odd chuckle.
Well, I was just thinking about that. I mean, if it was anybody else, that would be annoying. But, these guys, it's cool because they kind of get it. But, it's like having that constant listener who anytime you say something wrong, who's going to give you a phone call and be like, no, it's pronounced Molotov.
That's right.
And you're just going, yes, I know. I said Molotov. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I never heard it pronounced until now, but thank you.
Like when Benny was here and he corrected us about Andy Mineo's name.
Yeah.
It's that
now
kind of.
It sounds right, but it sounded so wrong when he said that. I'm like, really, Mineo?
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
Mineo sounds really cool to me, but
It
Mineo,
does.
Like,
well, it's
like,
kind of like
does that mean there's a small O? He's
it's
not
either
a capital O.
Sounds French or Hispanic when you say it that way. Andy Mineo.
Yeah.
So, but formerly known as Sea Light, actually.
Yes, this is true.
Decided to
'Cause he
drop
can play the background.
That's right. Decided to drop the moniker for his real name.
which is becoming more and more of a trend in hip hop, which I find rather refreshing in some ways.
Yeah, absolutely.
But then again, maybe after Family Force 5 did it so over the top, a lot of people are like, "Oh man, my name feels stupid now. That's not as cool as Crouton or Chapstick or
Yeah.
Soul Glow Activator."
There's a well, I don't know. I mean, there's an idea that those names typically came from gang affiliations. That was normally where you would hear those kind of monikers come up, is when you're in a gang. And so I don't know if there's maybe a line that they're trying to step away from as far as the gang side of things. A moniker like that would lend to having some street cred. But if you came up with it yourself, not so much. That's like people don't come up with their own nicknames. You don't walk out the door one day and decide, I want to be called, Big Baba or whatever it is. And just tell people that that's what you want to be called. It's like, no, nicknames are something that, are usually given to you by someone else because of, some various things.
Yeah. And it was funny because I thought I was going to be like super trendy. And so when I was in high school, I wanted people to start calling me Six because I discovered randomly one day, and I won't show it to you because you wouldn't show up on the camera well enough for it to matter. But like if I was like leaning over the edge of my bed or something, I was reading, my head off the bed or whatever, my hand, the blood would start to rush to my head and my hands. And I got to notice that right below my thumb, kind of, if you looked at it just right, it looked like the word six.
Uh-huh.
And I thought that was really cool. So I was like, oh man, I'll just start showing people that and get them to call me Six. Yeah, I never caught on.
When you start it yourself, it just
It's
never works. Never works. Well, let me see. Tim just actually sent me a link here that says Creep Carnival launches featuring Rocky Gray and members of Grave Robber.
Yeah.
So
Super
that's
excited about that.
Yeah, that's very interesting. A new project has emerged from a few members of Grave Robber and Rocky Gray of Living Sacrifice. They are called Creep Carnival, and you can find them on Facebook. There's also a teaser to be found below this post, which is the news is from Indie Vision Music. So if you don't check them regularly, you should.
That's right.
And let me see. Grave Robber is definitely still in motion and will be releasing new music this year.
Yeah.
So that's very, very interesting.
Yeah.
So
and here's something
news.
else kind of in the hardcore realm, Onward to Olympus, which is one of those bands that I never really thought of as being a huge deal, but they were constantly one of those groups that opened for a lot of bigger bands like War of Ages and bands of that ilk. They were never like the headliners, but they always toured with some really good people.
Mm-hmm.
But they are going to call it a day, and they're going to be making Face Down Fest 2014 their last show. So evidently there are some members that are continuing with the new band, and if you want more info, once again, indievisionmusic.com.
Yeah, the place to be. We usually use Indie Vision Music and Jesus Freak Hideout. Those are kind of our two main sources, and New Release Tuesday for some stuff as well. So those are kind of like the three main sites. If you're going to want to know anything about what's going on, aside from listening to Paul and I, we typically get our info from those three websites. So be sure to check them out if you web at all.
Yeah, as you should.
If you web like Spider-Man.
If you web like Spider-Man, be like, shing, 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 shing.
It's actually more of a fwip. If you read the comics, it's more of a fwip. So
he was taking swords away from people.
Oh, gotcha.
Shing, is it hitting the blade?
Gotcha. Okay. Nice try, Paul.
I'm so full of it.
Nice try. Is there any other newsy stuff that we kind of need to mention?
Oh, yes, there is.
Oh.
The Demon Hunter first week numbers came out, and they did really well. They came in number 2 overall on the hard rock albums. And the one that beat them out is a band that is kind of funny because the whole idea and kind of the center of the other band's album, from what I've been able to tell, is that we belong in hell.
Okay.
That's kind of a cool thing somehow. So it was kind of funny that they were right up there with those guys and girl because it's a female-led band. But then overall on the top 200 of Billboard, they came in number 16, which is not bad for a metal band, much less a Christian metal band.
Yeah,
so
totally.
Props to them.
Good deal.
Oh, and by the way, Look what I got in the mail.
What did you get it? Oh,
It's the book.
Oh. Oh.
Oh
What
yes, it's got handwritten. I mean, obviously it's been scanned, but handwritten notes on all the songs, a DVD and CD, and the part that makes me the most happy, if I can get it out without damaging it somehow, is the fact
is that the 7-inch vinyl?
There's a 7-inch vinyl.
Woo!
So
Paul is a happy camper, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, I am. I am very happy. This is like, if I'm going to buy an album new, this is it.
Yeah.
Which is good because it's kind of expensive.
Yeah.
So it's nice that I don't buy a whole lot of full price music otherwise. So.
No,
Anyway.
you know, it's fantastic. I heard the last part of your interview with Ryan the other day, where you were talking about how you had all that on order and everything, and he sounded just as excited that you had it on order as you sounded to have it on order.
Right?
You know, which is funny. You don't think about it in that way usually, but you know, it was very. It was a neat little. I didn't get to hear everything you guys talked about, but that last little portion I thought was pretty good. He's a really good interviewee.
Yeah, he is. And this time he seemed more relaxed and kind of at home with everything. I think because it was a weird setup. So I think I ended up getting him like at the end of the day, like after he had probably had a long break, and it wasn't like sandwiched in between 10 other interviews in the morning.
Right.
So I think he was awake, which was nice, and not stressed about getting onto another call. So, I mean, he was very laid back compared to when I've talked to him before. Not that he was just anxious or like very obviously biting his nails or something in previous interviews, but this time he just seemed like really at home, and I thought that was cool.
I've always felt like he was someone that was slightly uncomfortable with the fame.
I think that's probably true, which is funny because he's been in bands since he was 16.
Well,
I mean, it's
but
not
that's-
like this is something new.
So as a you know, if you look at it from an artist perspective, you know, artists do what they do because they love what they do, not
Right.
necessarily because they want everybody to know their name.
This is true.
Okay.
Which makes sense because when Demon Hunter started, they didn't even release the names of the members. I mean, it was a
Right.
really big deal when the album came out, so you could find out who was actually in the band.
Right. So, you know, I mean, that's kind of that's the way that I see it. Is he loves to do it. It's something that he feels like he was born to do, and the money and fame side of it just kind of happened to come along with it, and it's not what he was looking for in doing it. That's my impression of things that I've heard. In that regard. So whether that's accurate or not, I have no idea. But that's what I've
that's
heard.
probably a fairly safe assumption. I mean, he is very cool with doing behind the scenes kind of stuff, both at Tooth and Nail and just kind of with his his art studio as well. So
Yeah.
I think that kind of lends itself to that general idea for sure. So I'm not complaining. I think he's a really cool dude, and you know, it's one of those things where it was nice to hear explanations of songs like "I Will Fail You" and get some of that realness that I think is often missing with Christian music, and just kind of that perspective of, you know, we're gonna screw up, and you really should be used to that idea. It's like, no, I'm not saying I'm going to do it on purpose or make you mad or just, you know, try to screw up your life, but just know that, you know, whatever you think I am, I'm still human, whether I'm a Christian or not. I'm a human, and that's always going to be true. So you need to kind of get over it. And I'm just going, yes, thank you.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. No, I mean, it's that kind of authenticity that I feel is lacking in a lot of ways, you know, and I don't want to dog on K-Love, so don't misunderstand what I'm going to say, but the representation that you get from stations like them is that, you know, it's a health and wealth and prosperity and everything is fine attitude, and that's not something that I feel is an accurate representation of what it really is.
Right.
You know, I mean, he says, "Cast all your cares on me, for my yoke is easy and my burden is light." But that's not an easy task for everyone to do. You know, it's a great goal to strive for.
Yeah.
But the reality is that it's a lot more difficult to do than a lot of us think.
True. And I also like that he made the point, if I'm remembering correctly, that if we were as perfect or they were as perfect as people like to think that Christians are, grace would be unnecessary.
Yes.
So, you know, we live in a grace-based faith, and if that wasn't needed, then Christ died for nothing. And that's something that needs to be remembered from time to time. And you kind of have to check yourself in that mindset, is that, oh, wait, yeah, that's right. God came down here and died because we were screw-ups. And he didn't say we weren't going to be screw-ups afterward. We're still going to need that continual flow of grace from God, because we're going to say and do stupid things.
Yeah, exactly.
So, why try to get away from that? I mean, no one's trying to say, go get drunk every weekend, get high, whatever, because God's going to forgive you for it. But at the same time, I think when you're making that effort, I think that's the part that counts.
Right.
And, I just don't understand the whole mindset of, oh, you become a Christian and then you're perfect. It's like, in God's eyes, maybe.
Right.
But no one else is going to buy that.
Right. No, and that's exactly right. It's one of those, it's one of those things that we don't always understand every aspect of it, but we do know. We know a few things. Number one, God is love. Okay,
Yeah.
Ultimately. However, He's also just. So, that means that nothing gets by Him, and there is a penalty for everything. What that penalty is, the severity of it, and all of that, thankfully, for us as believers, was covered under the blood of Christ.
Right.
And it's a matter of trying to find a way to be able to share that with others, that gives us the hope and gives us the ability to impart that hope onto them. But I still think it needs to be a realistic version of what the life is, and not just some, like Tim and I like to say, puppy dogs and rainbows aspect of it.
Right. Or if you are Matt Langston from 1187, it would be rainbows and unicorns. But
Yes.
I don't think you would see that as a bad thing.
Right. No, I don't.
I was looking at
don't
his
think
Facebook
so.
the other day, and the Jelly Rock's evidently starting to write for another record. And his studio has, kind of the typical thing that you would expect, dual monitors, some studio monitors as well, the speakers. But on top of one of the speakers of the screen or something was this big ceramic unicorn. And I'm just going, yep, that makes sense. I get it. Like, way to go,
that's
Matt.
funny.
You
That's
being
funny.
you.
That sounds like him. That definitely sounds like
man.
him. What else do we have? Oh, by the way, Tim says that Ryan Clark is the scariest looking man in Christian music, but he's a really nice guy.
That's right. I think they should just change their name to Beard.
Yeah, they could get away with that
Every
too,
member of
huh?
the band has a very prominent beard now. It's not even like one of them is kind of sort of scruggly. No. They all have this really huge beard.
Yeah.
It's like if Duck Dynasty went metal,
Right.
you would have Demon Hunter.
Yeah, that would make sense. I could see that. Absolutely. What else do we have news-wise?
Nothing else that I can think of. Well, I'll take that back. There's some stuff that I wanted to mention that's kind of not really newsy, but I guess it kind of fits into this more than it would later. So I'll just jump right into it. One, you can grab a new single, or rather a new song from Emery on badchristian.com. It's called I Got Taken for a Bath. Now, it's a rough demo. It's not like fully mastered and all that. They made that fairly clear, but you can grab it for free, and I got a clip for you because I'm just that kind of guy. Here we go.
Awesome.
Good stuff.
Yeah,
But
I
anyway,
like the sound of that.
Yeah, if you want to grab it, you can go to badchristian.com and grab that. The other thing actually kind of ties back into our whole Demon Hunter thing, which probably means I should have done that first, but you know me, I'm stupid.
Yeah, well,
I didn't think about that at all. Well, randomly the other day on Facebook, I totally heard about something that I didn't know anything about, and I felt really dumb that this had not been promoted more than it has. But, we all love Ryan Clark as a vocalist from Demon Hunter. Just great stuff. Well, I was trying to think of who would be the last person in the world that I would expect him to do a guest vocal for. This guy would definitely be one of the top three. Do you remember a hip-hop R&B artist named Sean Locke?
Yes.
He has a guest vocal he has Ryan Clark doing guest vocals on one of the songs on his new album that just dropped.
Really?
I know. How weird is that? I'm just going, seriously? How is this not being talked about more? So I went and I pirated it like a dude, and just so I can play a clip from it because I want the full album. I'm probably going to delete all this after it's over because let's face it, I want it to be really good quality. But
Right.
this will be good enough to get the point across. This is a song off the new Sean Locke CD. It's called "We Don't Play" and it features Ryan Clark. And you have to hear this. It's so good.
If you want the living water pouring on a cup, you know I don't play. Yeah, you know I don't play. If you're feeling like I'm feeling, let me set it up. If you want the living water pouring on a cup, you know I don't play. Too late, they got me staring at now. Fire in the border through the
What do you think about that?
I like it. That sounded good.
I know. That's just straight up dope. I love
Yeah.
that. Oh, good stuff.
Yeah.
Well, there's a song on there that features a guest vocal from another one of our favorite vocalists, Soul Glow Activator.
Okay.
Coming out of his little retirement to do a guest vocal on a song called Kinfolk. And I'm pretty sure he probably produced this track too because it just sounds like it belongs.
I think
on
it's
an old
funny that you call that you say he's retired when he's probably busier now than he was when he was with Family Force 5.
This is true. He's retired as a lead vocalist
Yes.
of a band. But
Yes.
I have a feeling he is going to have a big output fairly soon.
Yes.
And I wouldn't be a bit surprised if all the stuff that we were hearing, like Chainsaw and Phenomenon and some of the other songs that were more dance centric, I wouldn't be a bit surprised if he released an album of stuff like that by himself because I
Yeah.
think he could.
Totally.
And he does a lot of DJing stuff. He has like an EDM show on a station in Texas that he does each and every week. So I mean, he's got the chops for it. So it'll be interesting to see. But anyway,
Cool.
here's Sean Locke, Kinfolk featuring Soul Glow Activator.
All right.
whole fireproof pain. They ain't the only ones who shoot us. We are the ones. We get it how we live, folks. This is all my kinfolk. Get loud, let it ride, put a lot go down for my kinfolk, down for my kinfolk. What you think we here for? Down for my kinfolk.
Tasty.
It's funny because everything we hear Soul Glow do, we're gonna go, oh yeah, that totally sounds like Family Force 5.
Well, it does. I mean, he's got such a unique voice. that
Yeah.
I don't think most people have. And like I said, I would bet that he produced that track as well.
Most
It just
likely.
has that kind of a vibe to it, which isn't bad.
Yeah.
I like it. But
Yeah.
anyway.
No, awesome.
So the new Sean Locke record's out now, and it features that. It also features a guest that I did not grab a clip from because I figured we could kind of imagine what it would sound like. But Toby Mac also does a guest appearance on one of the
Okay.
tracks as well.
Cool.
So, anyway.
Good deal. Any other news that we need to talk about?
No, I think I'm good.
The news and views you need right here. Hey, Paul, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
You ready?
Uh-huh.
Okay, listen closely.
You gonna do something or just stand there and bleed?
Is that from Tombstone?
It is. Congratulations. What did you win today?
Absolutely jack.
A year's supply of turtle wax.
Thought you were going to say air, and I was like, well, I can deal with that. That's something I can use,
Well, no, if we believe all the global warming hype, there won't be much of that left in a while. So, it's all good. We got a couple of different topics today. Well, let me see. Yeah, I'll do this one first, and then we'll get to Tom's awesome review. There was a link that got posted on Broken FM, and I had actually seen it before it got posted there. Another friend of mine posted it on their wall on Facebook. And it's the singer Bono from the band U2, and some of his thoughts on God and Jesus and religion. I'm going to play the clip so that you can hear his words, because I don't want to read anything in, I don't want to misquote anything that he said. So I'll play a little bit, and then I'll probably stop it and make a comment, because some of the stuff he says right at the beginning, I was a little bit concerned. Now, just to kind of preface this, I've never been a big U2 fan. Everybody keeps telling me that they're this amazing Christian band, and I've just never gotten that from them.
Okay.
But part of it's probably because I've never really followed them that much.
Okay.
You know, I mean, I can understand some Christian themology within some of their music, but then they do other things like dress in drag for one of their music videos and just some of that stuff. I'm like, you know, how is that a good representation of what Christ is? You know, and I feel that as Christians, that's kind of what our job is to try to be mini Christs.
Okay.
That's my interpretation. Okay.
Okay.
Strictly me. And so at the beginning of this, some of the stuff he says, I'm kind of like, oh, where are you going with this? But some of the things that he says later on, I'm like, okay, yeah, I can totally agree with that. So let me get to the clip. And like I said, if I need to stop it, I will. Or Paul, if you want to say something, just let me know to pause it, and I'll pause it so you can say something if you want to.
Okay, go for it.
All right, here we go.
I look to the scriptures for poetic truth, as well as the sort of historical stuff I'm interested in. And of course, there was a historical Jesus.
No, I'm talking.
Okay, so that first part, I question. I look
Yeah.
to the scriptures for poetic truth. What
Right.
the heck is poetic truth? Something
I
is
don't
either
know.
true or it's not true. So I don't understand what poetic truth is, and maybe somebody can help me understand that.
That's a tough one, and I thought I had it there for a half second, and then it left me.
It-
That's honestly not a joke. I thought I had a good explanation for that. Maybe it's just kind of a good. Never mind, it totally lost me again. I don't know. I mean, I can kind of get where he's coming from, or it's one of those things where you almost wonder if he maybe misspoke in some sort of a way, but that's unfair to project that either direction.
Right.
Somebody's like, oh,
Right.
I'm sure they just misspoke. But yeah, I can understand how it just seems like the beginning of a big dodge. doesn't
It does. And that's exactly how I felt, was like he's kind of dodging the question a little bit.
Right.
Now, some of this, it feels as though the interviewer is digging for something specific and almost trying to set Bono up for a failure, or kind of a Phil whatever his name is from Duck Dynasty.
Right.
Kind of Phil Robertson, one of those kind of deals where he was kind of fishing. And I don't know how old this interview is. I don't know how recently it was done. I mean, this thing may be 5 years old, and I just happened to hear about it, so that's why we're bringing it up today, and we haven't talked about it in the past.
But
and
it is definitely making the rounds, right?
Oh,
now.
yes.
So it's relevant, but yeah, at the same time, yeah, it's hard to know on some of those things.
Exactly. So the interviewer goes back in and he tries to kind of redirect where Bono was heading, and that's where we'll pick up right now.
About God.
Oh, right.
And do
Well, I
you-
see. The person of Christ is my way to understand God.
Do you pray?
Yes.
To whom or what do you pray?
To
and in
Christ.
what way? To Christ.
Yeah.
And what do you pray for?
I pray to get to know the will of God, because that.
Right there, I think that's an excellent answer. You pray to get to know the will of God. I can agree with that, all day long. So, this is where we kind of start to fall in line, where I begin to see Bono in a slightly different light. Now, I paused it mainly because Tom said maybe he meant he found truth in a literary form. That's
I can
possible.
Get on board with that.
That's totally
mean,
possible.
That sounds
I mean,
right.
it's as good an explanation as any, in my opinion.
And yeah,
you know.
two things real quick.
Yeah.
One, yeah, the dude totally seems like he's fishing, and it's so funny. The other thing is that music is the most distracting thing.
Is
ever.
it?
It'd probably be better if we were actually seeing the visuals with it, but right now I'm like, okay.
There
So-
are no visuals. It's
Right.
his face and the interviewer's face.
But
It's
still,
a 2-camera shot.
Well, and I get that, but even that amount of visual would be enough to distract from this weird acoustic, thank you for coming to Crate and Barrel stuff that they got going on up there. I don't
Yes.
understand, but anyway.
Oh,
feel free to
man.
continue. I just had to point that out. I'm just sitting here listening to this going,
Yeah.
I know he's saying interesting stuff, but this music's terrible.
Yeah, totally. All right, so back to it.
And the prayers have more chance of coming true. I mean, that's the thing about prayer, isn't it? I mean, we don't do it in a very lofty way in our family. There's just a bunch of us on the bed, usually. We have a very big bed in our house. And we've prayed with all our kids. We read the scriptures, we pray. It's not even regular. Sometimes if we go to church on a Sunday, we go when the church has ended and we'll just go in on our own as a family.
For peace and quiet.
For peace and quiet, and we'll pray, usually about people that we know who are struggling with something, illness or
so
whatever.
then, what or who was Jesus as far as you're concerned?
I think it's a defining question for a Christian, is who was Christ, and I don't think you're let off easily by saying a great thinker or a great philosopher, or because actually he went round saying he was the Messiah. That's why he was crucified. He was crucified because he said he was the Son of God. So he either, in my view, was the Son of God, or he was
Not.
nuts.
Nuts, yes.
Forget
Yes.
rock and roll messianic complexes. This is like, Charlie Manson type delirium. And I find it hard to accept that all the millions and millions of lives, half the earth for 2,000 years, have been touched, have felt their lives touched and inspired by some nutter. I don't believe it.
I like that. That was probably my favorite quote, that, half the Earth's lives, I don't believe that half the Earth's lives have felt like they've been touched by a nutter. I thought, wow, you really, I felt like he really kind of nailed that answer, in my opinion. It gave me a new respect for Bono, honestly.
Yeah. Well, and that's such a basic line of thought for me that I have never understood how people get past that.
Right.
Is the whole, you randomly get into a conversation about faith and God and Jesus with somebody, and it comes up of, well, what do you think, who or what do you think Jesus was? Oh, I think he was a nice guy. He had a lot to say. It's like, no, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Like what? It's like, well, either to me, I think there are more than two options. I think there are three. Either he was who he said he was, which is, what we believe. He was completely bat poo nuts, like Bono said, in simpler forms.
Right.
Or he was a lying scumbag.
Right.
You cannot be anything but those three. You can't go around especially today. If you did that today, that's what everyone would assume. You can't go around saying, you know what, I'm the Son of God. No, not like in a figurative sense, like I gave him my life, but no, me. That's right. I was up there in heaven. We're bros. Well, not really bros. We're like, father and son kind of thing, because, we're related, like literally related.
Right.
And people aren't going to look at you and go, that seems like a nice guy. He seemed like he had some interesting things to say. Like, no. But I don't know. I'm glad to hear Bono say that. I've never been hugely obsessed with whether or not they were a Christian band or not. To me, I always felt like their songs had something good to say.
Right.
And, I think that they do a lot of good stuff. But to me, I don't know. Maybe I'm weird because I've never been as obsessed with that as a lot of people in our position have been. But I don't know. I think it's good to hear him say that, though. I'm on board with you. I think that gives me kind of a rejuvenated respect for Bono, at the very least.
Tom's quote in the chat room is C.S. Lewis's "Liar, Lunatic, or Lord."
Right. Exactly. Good.
So I think that's true. There's a few seconds left of this conversation, so we'll go ahead and let him finish up his thoughts on that. But I felt like that was too good to wait till the end to get to.
Okay.
So therefore it follows that you believe he was divine.
Yes.
And therefore it follows that you believe that he rose physically from the dead.
Yes. Yeah. I'm no problem with miracles. I'm living around them. I am one.
So I love that at the end. He's like, I have no problem with miracles. They're all around me. And then he finishes with, I am one. And it'd be interesting to hear his final thought on why he considers himself a miracle. I have a feeling that it has to do with the whole idea of salvation being, a completed work, and that causes the miraculous attitude, the feeling of a miracle. But that little clip, I think, changed my perspective on Bono as a person,
right,
for the better. I'm still not a huge fan of U2's music. There are some songs that I like that they do, but, I don't go out and make it a point to buy whatever their latest album is. I don't buy into the hype that is U2. But
Right.
I think I have a better understanding of Bono, slight, and a better appreciation for him as a person.
Right. Yeah, and I think that that's always a good thing, And it's weird because U2 is one of those bands I'm not like a huge fanatical fan of. I enjoy their music when it comes on the radio, and I do have several of their albums. And I think for the most part, most of the stuff that gets tossed around is the reasons why they're most definitely not a Christian band for whatever reason. Sorry. I think most of that can be kind of chalked up to cultural differences, because in Britain, dressing in drag is just it's not as big of a deal as it is over here.
Right.
And there's been interviews or statements where he's dropped the F-bomb, but the F-bomb over there is like saying, "Oh crap," here. I mean,
Right.
it's not a big thing over there at all.
Right.
Which is so funny. Because you watch stuff like on British TV, like on Netflix or something, and they use it all the time, and you're just going, are they throwing that in there just because they know that we're going to hear it, or is it because it's such not a big deal that it's just not a big deal? You just never really know.
I mean, nudity on TV over there is treated completely differently than it is here in the U.S.
True.
too. They consider us exceedingly prudish for not allowing a bare breast to be shown on television, and that, that's a whole nother. That's a whole nother ball game, a whole nother thing as to where you happen to lean on some of that stuff. So, it's all a part of the process of getting to know. But, I appreciated most of what he had to say. I'm still unsure about that beginning part for the literary truth. That's going to... I'm going to wonder about that for a while. But like
Poetic
I said,
truth.
poetic truth. Excuse me,
Right.
poetic truth. Exactly. But that's one of those things that that's a minor thing, I think, in my opinion, because it seems like he's dead on with his interpretation of who Jesus is, and his death, his burial, and his literal resurrection. I think are key things that we can both agree on.
Right.
He and I, that is.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
So, I thought that was interesting. I wanted to bring it up and talk about it a little bit. So,
Cool.
Good stuff. Let's see. What are we doing? Let me do this.
Now here's something we hope you'll really like.
In a hard place. New music. Guardian. Almost home.
No doubt fans of Guardian have looked to the heavens once or twice over the last 17 years and quoted Psalm 13 in asking, "How long, O Lord? How long must we wait for another Guardian album?" Well, though the Lord tarries, Christian rock legends Guardian are back with their 7th studio album, Almost Home. Singer Jamie Rowe, the last remaining founding member and bassist David Bach, and the rest of the crew bring us a new record, the first since 1997's Bottle Rocket, after what seems like an eon of pursuing other projects, mostly musical. Almost Home is due out in the coming months, but is available now to those that back the supporting Kickstarter campaign. You want to talk about been there, done that? Guardian has gone through many transitions. Name, roster, image, labels, even language, and one thing has surely remained the same. These guys can deliver the rock. Some things should be said right away, especially to anyone that expects to hear that classic Guardian sound. First off, really? Second, what you hear on this album is what I would describe as Guardian has become. They've progressed, matured, changed. Okay, I'll say it, aged. Of course it's not going to sound identical to the Miracle Mile or Fire and Love Guardian that you used to crank through the T-roof of your Camaro. But listen, it sounds good. Real good. A great comeback album. If you were a lover of the popular Swing Swang Swung, you'll dig this record too. Press play and Almost Home kicks off with the driven rock number, Boom She Said. This track is a great way to start and features some eerie slide guitar accompanying the verse melodies and a punchy chorus. Track 2 was a treat for fans back in December 2013, as The Real Me was available on iTunes as a teaser. This one is right in the wheelhouse of a SoCal rock band with their roots in the 80s and could easily be dubbed over the opening credits to That 70s Show. Don't believe me? YouTube it and try it yourself. The album does soften up with the tracks Little Things, Wonderful, and the Santana-sounding California Rain. But King of Fools will help satisfy those that miss that old Guardian sound, as this song features some tasty lead guitar, something that this album could use a bit more of. That's one big critique I do have, the lack of guitar solos. I know I said what I said about this album not sounding like Fire and Love or Miracle Mile, but I just think a band like Guardian should take more opportunities to melt some faces. Paranoia Kills is the first radio single from this album, and probably gets as close as you're gonna get to that classic Guardian vibe. This track rocks. Simply smokes. I hope this is spun on the radio for months to come. Price to Pay and Free are decent songs, but they're not going to win over any younger listeners, maybe their moms. Guardian brings it home with a slower acoustic song, being the title track, Almost Home. This is a good mellow piece, but I would have thought this track would serve better as a mid-album bridge. The 3 tracks I didn't mention aren't full songs, but are instrumental and, in one case, a phone call recording that fill the space between the songs I listed. Some younger listeners may look at those that love this album and think, I guess you had to be there. But longtime fans of Guardian, and even those that just dig a more, shall I say, mature sound, will definitely enjoy Almost Home. All in all, I stand by what I said, and this is a great comeback record, worthy of any Guardian fan's collection. And if you're a longtime Guardian fan, you know you're gonna buy it anyway, so who cares what I have to say? I give Almost Home by Guardian 4 rocks out of 5. For the Rock in a Hard Place podcast, I'm Tom Labonte.
All right. If you want more info about Tom Labonte, he is the host of The Edge on UCB Canada. And you can check him out. I just lost Paul Gibson. You can check him out at ucbcanada.com and rockfortherock.net. Paul, I don't hear you. Unmute your...
Yeah.
You disappeared, but you're back.
I'm back. I don't know what happened. All of a sudden, it just went... Pew!
Yeah, that's weird. Having some issues today. So I want to thank Tom for that review. I think it was... he was concerned it was a little bit long, but I feel like he covered the time really well.
Yeah, I think so too.
So.
And there is one slight disagreement. I'll give you, Tom. And it's not... I'm not annoyed, so I don't want it to come across as that. But to me, I think the album kind of felt like a good sampler of their career, because I think that there was some stuff that, while it didn't feel like is quite as breakneck as Miracle Mile or Fire and Love, I think that there was some stuff that was definitely reminiscent of that.
Yeah.
But I like it, though. I think that there was a lot of stuff on there that was good. And I honestly haven't listened to it all the way through enough times to really notice that there wasn't as many guitar solos. So I will totally hand you that one, because you can't have too many guitar solos on a Guardian record. That's
right.
That's just a fact. I mean,
yeah.
I don't care how many there are. Like every song could have 2, and it would not be enough. Tony Palacios is just an awesome guitar player, so there is no such thing as too many guitar solos for a Guardian record.
Yeah.
And the only other thing I would mention, and this is just me being completely a nitpicky fan, completely nitpicky. It is not the original lineup. He's totally correct. But it's the lineup that everyone will remember, except for the fact that they've added a member.
Right.
Because from Fire and Love through now, it's been the same guys, but they added a new guitarist. His name's Jamie Puerno, I think is how you say his last name. And so now they have 2 guitarists. But other than that, I mean, it's everyone who's followed them for the majority of their career will know this as the Guardian lineup, because the original one, way back in the day, which I do have that CD, is a different vocalist and, you know, a different drummer, I think, and it is really different. But yeah, it sounded more like Van Halen. But this definitely is the lineup that everyone will identify, and if you saw them live pretty much at any point, these will be the guys that you remember. So have no worries about that. But
yeah,
they
totally
added a guy, which mainly he was added because whenever they were going on tour to South America, it wasn't always a given that Tony would be able to go. So they would get booked for these things. And they're like, man, we really need to make sure that we have somebody. And then I guess they already knew Jamie Puerno. So they were like, well, let's get him in. And then when it came time to record, they're like, you know what? We just need to keep him around. I mean, he's in it for so much anyway.
Yeah.
You know, he needs to be a full member of the band. So
well, and if he's going to tour with them, he's going to need to know the music anyhow. So why not just, tack him on there?
Right. Yeah, for sure.
So, it totally makes sense to me in that regard. It's a great album. I've enjoyed listening to it so much. And hey, Paul, I want to say thanks for the shout out for Tim and I on your show this last week. I heard you. I heard you mention that we got to pick the single. So
that's right.
And I haven't seen it charting yet, but it was also just recently added. So
yeah, well, it is in the most added.
It is
list.
You're right. It is in the most added. That's correct.
So it's already on KCLC and KVRK reporting. So it's got 2 new stations added this week. So I think it'll get enough mileage to where it at least will chart.
Yeah.
I don't know how much beyond that it'll do, but hey, I'm doing my part. It's spending 2 weeks in a row on my show. So
yeah. Well, I think it'll continue. I think you'll see it continue to grow because I feel like it's got that vibe that that is going to be able to just help it climb. I want to see it crack the top 10. I'd love to see it at number 1. I don't know if that's possible.
Yeah.
So, and this kind of leads into our conversation that we wanted to have today. Now that the show's 3/4 of the way over already. We not like time's ever been a factor for us. At least not for the last 6 or 8 months.
Right.
We wanted to talk about the future. Where is Christian rock going? And that was kind of what we wanted to talk about. That's what we decided on, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, okay. I'm just making sure that we're both on the same page still. The text messaging last night was
Late.
our show prep and all that we deeply go into. But you made an interesting point about Silverline. And I know you haven't been the most vocal fan when it comes to Silverline.
No.
Yeah, you made some comments before about not really being a big Silverline fan.
Well, I mean, they're one of those bands. Okay, here's my thing with Silverline. I find them to be awesome guys. I have seen them live, but when I saw them live, it was fairly early to me in their touring career. So there wasn't a ton about their live show that did like a huge amount for me. It was a good live show. It was not bad. That should be stated up front. It was not bad. They played well. It didn't feel like they had as much of a gravity on stage as I would have liked. So in that way of thinking, I mean, the stage presence wasn't there as much as I would have liked, but they did a good job of playing the music. It sounded good. It did not sound like either it was just completely replicated off their album or that it was overlaid live and that it stunk.
Right.
So it was a good thing. I like their albums, but I think I like them as singles better. There are different bands that are that way for me. Like there are bands I like to listen to their albums from start to finish, love it. And then there are other bands that if I listen to their album from start to finish, I don't like it as much, but then when it comes on the radio, I'm like, oh yeah, this is a kicking song. I love this. And they're one of those bands for me. But I never really think of them as being that big deal, which is odd because somebody pointed out on Twitter the other day that they have had 5 consecutive #1 singles. And that's not talking about on my show where votes count, from the public. No, this is just radio play, exclusively radio play. 5 in a row. That's huge. Most bands cannot accomplish that. And I don't think of Silverline they're not the first band that pops into my mind of, oh yeah, sure, they've had 5 #1 singles in a row. Why not? And maybe it's just because I'm old and
yes,
they still feel like a young band to me.
Yeah.
Which they've had, I think, 3 albums or maybe more. But their last one really got very good traction, and the one before it was good enough to lead into it to make it a big deal. And of course, now they're on a label that's really behind them, and it's made a huge thing. So I think that, I mean, now they're headlining this tour that I think is going to do really well for them. They're headlining with Sean Locke. And then, of course, I guess it's, I think, Loftalin and Lennox is on the tour as well. And as far as I can tell, it's doing really well.
Yeah.
And I think that it's really cool that they're doing so well. And I think that they're one of those faces that we're going to see around for a good long while. If they, I mean, as long as the next album just doesn't completely suck, I think that they will be in really good standings. And I don't think it will. But it's also going to be interesting to see what happens because Ryan Edberg, their lead singer, has just come out with a solo album or is about to, that's going to be a worship album. So I'm wondering how and if that will affect the Silverline fans one way or another. I don't think it really should.
Right.
But it'll be interesting to see what happens with that. But no, I like Silverline. They're just not one of those bands that I instantly think of when I think of Christian rock success stories for whatever reason. So
well,
it kind of took me aback when I saw that. I was like, what?
And I mean, do you honestly consider them a rock band, or are they more of a pop with some rock infusion? Yeah, I guess in order to really, it's hard to define the rock genre.
You're right.
Because it tends to, I mean, it can have pop included. It can have some hip hop included if it's got a rock bed to it.
Right.
You know, it can, there's just, I don't know, the rock genre just seems like it's so broad. Now, again, maybe I'm thinking because it's the Christian rock genre that they allow more to float in and kind of cross-pollinate.
I think to a point, but I also think that has a lot to do with the fact that you don't have Christian rock radio and Christian alternative rock radio and Christian active rock radio, because in the mainstream there's like 3 different or 4 different kinds of rock radio, which is funny because they're all doing terrible right now. Rock music is not where it's at, where the money is to be made.
Well, no, that's because pop is what's huge right now. That's why there's so many pop
hip-hop
stations, springing up all over the place.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, it's not where the money is right now. It's not the huge thing that it was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's still a driving force in music to a certain degree, but not nearly to the degree that it was. So I mean, it's different to think of it that way. But I would consider them a rock band. I think that they do have some very pop moments, but I think most rock bands, unless they're a very hard rock band, do. I mean, there's songs that are by Red that to me are kind of tossers, so to speak. You know, I would totally just throw them out. I'm like, yeah, that's
filler.
The one that's the filler that Air One is going to play.
Right.
And it's not a big deal to me, but at the same time, I would definitely consider them a rock band as well. Now, mind you, Silverline is not as heavy as Red is at their heaviest, but yeah, I would definitely say they land, maybe on the lower end of heaviness, but still, I would consider them a rock band more than I would a pop band.
So let me kind of ask you this, Paul. Where do you see the future of Christian rock moving?
2 different directions. I think the middle is going to be in a very weird spot somewhat quickly, because I think seeing bands like Love and Death get such good airplay, I think that there is a huge push now to have these bands that are heavy but accessible, or at least bands that are already heavy have some accessible songs. I think that will bring them new fans. I mean, you think about The Overseer, the new track from them is very accessible, but it's from a very heavy band.
Mm-hmm.
And then also Wolves of the Gate had the song Slaves that also kind of fell into that category. There's a new one, another new Solid State band that has a song that's like that, and I can't remember their name.
Well, Norma Jean just got released with Sword in Mouth, Fire Eyes. I mean, that's something that's been in hot rotation on Broken lately.
Right.
And Norma Jean is not normally a band that we would be able to play during the daytime.
Right.
Haste the Day, another song. Fit for a King.
Yeah.
So I see where you're going. Keep going.
So I think that's one end of it. I think the other end is, I'm hoping at least, because I think bands that I'm about to talk about have gotten very little love historically for the past, like, at least 5 or 6 years. I'm wanting, and I think that it's starting to get some good rotation, some of these bands like Mike Maines and the Branches or Scientists, some of these bands that have a very indie rock, interesting view to come and get some play, which is funny because those are the people who, to me, I think of as being a really big deal in the mainstream world, like Arcade Fire or there's a bunch of other bands right now that are doing really well on alternative radio that are a huge deal, and they're actually selling tickets, whereas maybe some of the mainstream rock bands are not. And I've wondered why the Christian music industry has been so far behind. Like one of my favorite tracks right now, and it's starting to get some ads, but very slowly, is the new one from Jeff from Number One Gun, Schneeweiss or whatever, however you say his last name.
Scheinweiss or something like that?
Scheinweiss, there we go.
Yeah, I don't know.
Something like that. He has a new song called Follow As You Lead, and it kept on coming up on my iPod, and every time I'd hear it, I'm like, wow, this is very obviously a mainstream band, but this has some really cool kind of Christian themes in it at the very least. And then I would go and look at it. I'm like, oh, that's Jeff from Number One Gun. That's an awesome song. It would totally, like, I could send that to my alternative station in town, and they would have to look for a reason not to play it. It sounds like everything they're playing. And not to say that they're trying to rip anybody off, but it has that cool flavor that that indie and alternative rock has now. And I want bands like them and Mike Maines and Scientist to really get the love that I think they deserve. And a band in Kansas, to me, falls into that same kind of space, and I don't think that they've ever gotten as much love as they deserve either.
Right.
So I'm hoping that maybe it's going to diverge a little bit away from the middle of the road rock that we've had for a while. Not to say there's anything wrong with it.
Well, let me ask you, who do you consider middle of the road? Is that like your Skillets and Red and that kind of, Disciple, that kind of vibe? Is that I just want what your definition of middle of the road rock is.
Right. To me, yeah, I guess they do to some extent. Maybe a little bit hard of center, if that makes sense. A little bit harder than complete middle of the road. I'm trying to look through stuff that's like currently getting love. I mean, bands like maybe Decipher Down or this is not to say that any of these bands I dislike, because I like almost all these bands.
Right.
But you got bands like I Anthem and Finding Iris and maybe like Random Hero, kind of these bands that are like rock to hard rock, which is good, and I dig on that. But at the same time, I think that there has been this weird shunning of anything that had some meat to it that was fairly heavy. Even tracks like, I don't think the song Feed the Machine by Red, I don't think that got nearly as much play as it deserved. To me, that was the best song they had released in a while.
Yeah.
And it didn't get the love it deserved. So,
but it was also one of the heavier tracks on that album.
Right, and that's what I'm getting at. I think that heavy songs and heavy artists that fall into that kind of spot have gotten no love for a while.
Yeah.
But then you got Love and Death that comes along and does really, really well. And I think Demon Hunter has historically been able to do fairly well too, but I think that their new singles are getting heavier, even though they're not as heavy as the heaviest track or even maybe the majority of the tracks on their album. Their singles are getting heavier.
Yeah.
Because I think they'll fly better. At the same token, I think that stuff that has some quirk to it, that's a little bit different, that's not quite like everything else, has been like, oh, well, that sounds weird. I don't get it. Nope, not going to play it. And that gets on my nerves too. So I think that it's broadening. And I don't know that means that the stuff that I would call middle of the road, not to say there's anything wrong with it, but the stuff that falls kind of in the middle for me, or at least that has been the normal for the past, 5 or 6 years, to me, I'm hoping that it just broadens from that. Not to say that I don't want that to be big or popular or anything like that. I'm just hoping that it broadens out a little bit more. So I don't know. That's me.
Let's go back to the Guardian, our Guardian conversation.
Okay.
Tim and I both like the Paranoia Kills song. We both think that it's a great song. Tim doesn't seem to think that it'll make it to number one because he doesn't think that a station like Radio U will pick it up. And when I asked why, he said, they skew to more of a college audience who isn't familiar with them. But I would see that as a potential positive, only because you have to introduce new music to your audience anyhow. And if it's a new song, but it's from an old band, I don't see how familiarity should play into it that much.
Right. Because let's face it, I mean, let's be honest here. If they were a brand new band and they came out with that exact same song, it would be different.
Right.
And that is a bit irksome.
Yeah. Yeah, totally, totally. Back to your comment about Red, Tim says that if Damage from Red was the single, I'd play it, and that's a heavy one from them.
Yeah.
So
And I don't know. I mean, I like all the singles that have come off of that record. It's not like there's been singles that I'm like, oh, really? But they do have a tendency to release a lot of mid-tempo, not quite heavy, but still fairly rockin'. And it feels almost like, and I'm not saying that they did, but it feels almost like some of those songs were created because they know Air One will play them.
well, and that's kind of my thing as well. You know, I mean, I agree that the heavier stuff that's more accessible is definitely where things are trending. I mean, you look at the playlist right now at the hot and medium rotation for Broken, and there's a lot of stuff that you typically would not have heard a couple of years ago making it into the hot rotation and getting a lot of spin. So I agree with you on that. But there's the other side of that coin that we have to talk about is, you know, it used to be so singles driven that, you know, you'd have one or two really great songs that would get people to buy an album, and the rest of the songs would seem like they were fluff or filler.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of feel like in some cases that's where Red is at this moment, is they're still in kind of that mentality of, well, we only need one or two to really sell the album. But then things are shifting now as far as sales are concerned, and you have the ability to buy any track off of an album that you want through iTunes or the Google Music Store or the Amazon Music or whatever the case may be. So with that, I feel like the push for the near future is going to be, you are going to have to make a killer album of almost potentially all singles if you want to be able to sell those albums as a complete album. Otherwise, people are going to pick the one or two songs that they like. They're going to spend their 99 cents or $1.50 or whatever it is on those tracks, and that's going to be the exposure. They're not going to pay attention to the rest of the album. And I feel like the album itself is a dying art because we have all of this onesie, twosie, picky, choosy kind of things.
I like that. That's nice. Guess which one of us is the father?
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, no.
Too much Dr. Seuss.
Yeah. And I almost wonder if, and I think several bands and labels have played with this idea. And I don't think I think maybe it was a little too early for them, possibly, or maybe it's just a bad idea and it doesn't work like it seems like it logically should. But with that being the case, you have to wonder if the idea of the EP is going to be more and more the norm rather than a full album. Because let's face it, if you write 20 songs and you're planning on releasing a 10 to 12 song album, but you know that maybe 5 of them really aren't as good as you'd want them to be, just release the 5 ones that are good.
Right.
And have an EP, because if people are only going to be buying them one song at a time, it seems like that would just concentrate your efforts a little bit more. And then you can hit the studio again in, 6 months to 12 months and do another one. Because especially once you're into your career enough to where you've had, between 5 and 10 songs that were singles.
Yeah.
How many more can you possibly play live anyway? I mean, this is not necessarily a recommendation or an endorsement, but I went to go see Metallica when I was in college, and every song they played was a single. Who would have thought? Because they've had so many.
Right.
And once you get past your third full album, assuming that they've all been at least somewhat well known, you're going to hit the point very quickly where you're going to have to start leaving songs out that people know really well.
Right.
To play a live set, even if you're a headliner.
Well, but then there's the flip of that, and that is that there are some songs that bands never really liked to begin with, but for some reason they struck a chord with people. Right. And it becomes a single, and it becomes something that the band is overly known for, and they just get so sick of playing it at shows and hearing about it, and they never want to touch it, but they know that if they don't close the show with this particular song, that there's going to be some kind of uprising or revolt or whatever, because they chose not to play that song that everybody knows and loves. You know, the idea of an album going platinum, I think is way less probable right now because of the way that music is distributed, that they almost need to recalculate how some of that stuff is figured.
Well, and they have to a certain degree, which I think is big of the music industry to do this. And maybe it's just because they're like, wow, we're not getting enough attention being able to hand out platinum records, or even, I mean, because they do it for singles as well. It doesn't even necessarily have to be a whole album.
Yeah.
But now they do calculate it to where it counts streaming services like Spotify and all that, but also YouTube. So if you're watching the music video over and over again, that does count into the total amount of sales, as it were, that it gets. I mean, it goes into that same pool. And so as soon as they changed that rule, there was about like 10 to 20 platinum singles that all of a sudden were instantaneously that, because the rule changes, and they handed them out, and it was good. And I think you kind of have to do that, because with as many people who are either just streaming it from somewhere / stealing it from somewhere, it really isn't fair to go by the same rules that you once did.
Right.
So I think that that's a good change. But at the same time, as far as being able to actually have an entire album go platinum, yeah, that's next to impossible now. Not that it was easy before, but, I think that Skillet getting platinum status, I think it was for Awake, may very well be the last platinum status they ever see.
Yeah.
Just because of the timing of it, which
Yeah,
is sad.
totally.
Because I think that, I'm not going to say that they deserve it more than other people, but I think that had it been 15 years ago, probably their last 3 albums would have gone platinum or near by now.
Yeah.
But that it's not then, and it's now. So what are you going to do?
Exactly. I'm just, it's definitely going to be interesting to see what the future holds. Tim says part of bands going indie is that they can pick the single. Label bands don't always get that freedom, and that is true. That is true. It's a lot of times the label is the one who gets to choose what they think will be the hit is. And depending on the scale of the artist, like how big, popular the artist is, that'll determine typically how much influence they have on the choice. But there also has to be a level of trust between the artist and the label to understand where they are going with it. That the label knows enough about the market to make an intelligent decision. There's got to be that trust aspect.
Well, and I think most bands who are independent at this point, I think Guardian's a good example of that, is that they're not just going to be like, we like this song is our single. They will ask people who are at least part of the industry, not necessarily a label head or an A&R person, but I think that Guardian asking you and Tim was a good move for them, because you're talking to people who are the ones who are potentially choosing it and thinking about it and playing it. And that's a huge thing, because let's face it, there were songs when I worked in Top 40 radio that I purposely did not play as much because I thought they were terrible. I get requests for them all the time, but I could care less. And there were those songs. So I think some songs would do better, in public opinion or not, if the people playing them like them. And it's and I've been approached by people as well. They're like, okay, what are your opinion on these 3 songs? These are the ones we're thinking about might be singles. What do you think? And I think that's a good move. I mean, mind you, I think it's cool. It's nifty for me. But when it all comes down to it, it's a good idea. Even if it's not radio people, talk to people who are in other bands, people who work for other labels. Even if you're not on their label and you've got a buddy who's an A&R at another label, ask them. I mean, they have nothing to lose, but if you can get honest feedback from the more people, the better.
Yeah.
And that's a great thing about being independent, is you can, ultimately make that decision yourself. And I think bands like, 1,000 Foot Crutch and Project 86 have done very well without having a label telling them, what was the single and what wasn't. So
exactly,
you can't really fault them for that.
Exactly. No, I totally agree. So future-wise, we see things, you especially see things kind of splitting off into 2 separate kind kind of two separate entities. You're going to have the heavier stuff and some of the more indie stuff. I don't think that there's going to be like two separate charts because I don't think there's enough of the music to enable that.
No.
But at the same time, there's definitely there's definitely kind of a shift to two different directions that you see getting a lot of the love.
Yeah, and I also think that two different directions also falls in another category as well. I think that there's going to be more of the very stripped down, basic, no frills. This is what it is. We did nothing to it in the studio. It's very raw. We recorded it Jack White style on a on a reel to reel. I think that's going to continue to get to be a bigger thing, and I also think bands like Viridia and Chronicles who are mixing like dubstep and rock together, I think they're going to slowly start getting more love as well. And then the stuff that's kind of typical fodder for coming out of a studio, not necessarily over-the-top production, but not really purposefully stripped down, I think that's going to start to maybe shift away from that a little bit too. I think people are wanting stuff that stands out more.
Right.
For whatever reason. It's less of the, I want to hear something that sounded like the last song that I heard. And it's going to be more of a, that song is completely different, and I can tell why.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big thing. And I'm all on board for that. I think that's a good thing. I think it, if nothing else, maybe makes bands work for it a little bit more.
Totally. Tom says, I see a bright future. And then he's typed something else and it went away. So let's see. I see a bright future. I'm honestly blown away by the amount of new bands that appear seemingly out of nowhere on a regular basis. And then... Now, hang on a second, because it went the other way.
Oh, he says, no doubt this is thanks to the current state of media distribution via the internet. And I agree with the possibility of a split between genres, all because of the amount of bands that begin to fill more than one Christian rock genre.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh,
so,
I'm jealous. You guys are getting Viridia?
Yeah, apparently, Tim.
Answer emails from me.
Well, you got to talk to Tim. He'll connect you.
Tim, we have to talk.
It will definitely be interesting to see what happens in the future. And, there's some predictions that you can make that are safe. There will still be Christian rock in the future. So that's a safe prediction. The rest of it is just a matter of guesswork and trying to figure out what we think the next best thing is going to be. I like Tom. I see a bright future. I think that I think what we're also going to see is some more crossbreeding of Christian artists being played in the mainstream music. And I think part of it is because there is a big hole in the rock world, like you stated, and that I think that the Christian rock sound is coming up to a level that can compete with the mainstream world and what their expectations of a rock sound is.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that's the way it should be. I never understood why it wasn't before.
Well, I think it's just because we didn't want to sound like the world. There seems to be this thing, where Christ's the Bible's comments of be in the world but not of the world means that you can't do anything that might look like what the rest of the world is doing. That seems to be the attitude. You go back to listening to the video that we talked about with the band protesting Switchfoot. That's one of their things. If you like rock music, you're a whore and you're a masturbator. Okay. I'm not sure why those two have to be linked together.
Right. Yeah.
Ultimately, as I said, God created music. And music can be used for both good and for bad. The same
Just
thing
like
could be said.
everything else.
Yeah, the same thing could be said for the internet. Good and bad. Both are capable. It's up to you to discern where you need to be. Tim says, I see there being a Christian hard rock and metal chart at some point in the future. So, that's a distinct possibility. Anything's possible. It's just a matter of how much, how many bands can fit within that category to make it worthwhile to report that as a category.
Right. And I think the bigger thing is how many stations are there or shows that are spinning it to really make it worthwhile. And I think Broken FM has done a great job of incorporating that in a good way.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest problem is that most of the Christian metal stuff is pretty sequestered to a once a week show that's maybe an hour, sometimes 3 if you're really lucky. But I think that I don't know that there will ever be Christian metal stations that aren't on the internet.
Yeah.
Just because it's not that it's not accepted in general, it's just that Christians, for the most part, have a harder time biting that off.
Well, and Tim makes an interesting point here, that a lot of this can change if online stations begin to report to the charts.
Yeah, this is true.
And that's something that online stations aren't given an opportunity right now, from what I know, of being able to report their spins. And so while I see that it could become a sticky wicket by allowing all online stations to report, I think that if there are stations that have been around for a certain amount of time and have a certain listenership, those I feel are just as important to allow reporting as you would an over-the-air station.
Right. Although I will say this, and I'm double checking on this to make sure that I'm not going to speak completely out of turn, but isn't Whip of Chords only online? Because they report.
I don't know.
I think they are. It's whipofchords.com, but I think they're pretty much just an online station. As far as I know, they are. Well, maybe I should click on the About section. But it's coming soon. Yep, they're an internet station. Anyway, yeah, I'm like 99% sure that they are.
But they report.
They do. They're on the Billboard chart that I'm looking at right now as being one of the people who added. And I mean, they seem to have done pretty well and have maintained what they do for a very long time.
Tim says they're syndicated.
Oh, that might do it then.
So that might
that's
have
right. That's right.
That might have something to do with it then.
Never mind. Oh well, that was a nice thought.
Yeah, it was
Sorry,
a very nice
internet
thought.
Stations, I got your hopes up there for about half a second, and I'm just and then we dashed them.
Totally, completely crushed, absolutely crushed. So let's see. Well, I think we've beat that horse enough. I think that we see a bright future. We're happy that Christian rock is still around and looks like it's going to continue to be a viable genre for a while longer. Tom says, I personally take into account Christian Rock .net's charts when it comes to playing new singles. So I haven't seen ChristianRock.net's charts.
Yeah. I have issues with that, but that's okay.
Oh, well,
that's okay. That's just me.
Okay.
It's just me.
All right.
And it's not worth getting into, Tom. You know. I have thought
talk about it offline.
Similar. Yeah, we can talk about that offline because it's not really worth getting into. But yeah, I mean, it's a good judge of seeing kind of what's out there. And to me, when it comes to charts, unless it's something that directly affects what I'm playing that's in the top 20,
right.
I find the charts very, very informative, at least on what's out there. Because sometimes stuff shows up there that no one sent to you for whatever reason. Then you can like, oh, that's
Tom
out.
says,
well,
Tom says nitpicky Paul.
That's me. I am nitpicky. Very nitpicky.
That's awesome. Good deal.
And elitist, don't forget that.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. Do you have a noise trade pick?
I do. Do you want to get into that?
Yeah, let's go ahead and do that.
All right. Okay. Two quick ones. One of them is from the band Future Forestry. You can actually grab a couple of different things from them. They've just recently released a piano and strings album, which is a bunch of their songs that they deem some of their better ones done with pianos and strings, as the title might imply. And then also they have a different one that you can grab that contains this song, and I'll tell you what it's called afterwards. So this song is called Chariots by Future Forestry. Noisetrade.com. Go grab it. So that's Future of Forestry. You can find that on their EP called Young Man Follow, and that's up there. So is the Piano and Strings Sessions, which is all instrumentals, and then they also have a Christmas one called Oh Come All Ye Faithful. So that's some good stuff. He's a very interesting fellow and does some really cool, very different sounding projects with Future of Forestry. The other one is a hip hop project that I think is very fun. It's very street. It's not as polished as some, but this one you can grab the entire. I think it's more or less an EP as well, but it's by an artist that I had not heard of up till now called Chino Life. That's CHENO space LYFE. Because after all, if you want to sound thug, you got to misspell stuff. That's just all there is to it.
Yeah.
And the song is called Mosh Pit Party. It features Marty of Social Club, which is a band that or a hip hop group that I do follow, and he's all over this EP. Mainly a lot of intros and kind of talking and doing goofy stuff that I really could do without. But when he actually raps, it's really good. But anyway, here's a little clip of that.
Cool.
Round two, you ain't tired, right? Hope not, we going all night. Wake up in the morning, feeling so right. Bitch, wake up in the morning with your soul right. We done been through too much, not a snap on the track when the beat cut off. We done vacate on Hell's Porch for my life story. I can spell hurt. It's kinda gory, but I spare the details. Weed sales and them cheap sales. Rather pitch hope and just set a break. Cut the music back, let's go. Let's turn this party to a mosh pit. Let's turn this party to a mosh pit.
I kind of like it. It's catchy.
Yeah,
Anyway,
no, I like it too. That sounds really
it's,
good.
Yeah, it's called the Falling Up 2 album, and
Okay.
it features that song as well as 4 others. And like I said, a lot of the intros feature Marty from Social Club just kind of talking to me and goofy. So if you listen to like the first 5 seconds of each track, you're probably not going to be that impressed. So you got to listen a little bit past that, and then if you're a nerd like Chris and I, then you can go in and you can edit out those off the front, and then just hear the cool parts. But he also has that song is a single up, and then Falling Up 1 is up there as well for free on noisetrade.com.
Cool. Awesome. I like it.
Yeah.
I like it a lot.
Kill.
Well, let's see. Shall we jump into this right here? If I can get to my thing and
The Rock in a Hot Place podcast presents
the one and the only.
All right, boys and girls, get ready for
The Stew.
It is time for the stew. We bring you 3 song clips, all from separate songs, and then 1 movie, which features 2 clips. And this is another one where I think there's a very good chance that Chris will get all of these. If he doesn't, at least if he doesn't get the movie, I'm going to be sorely disappointed. I'm just going to throw that out there. The songs, I don't know. I think he has a pretty good shot at it. And there is kind of a theme, but not as blatant as last time. They all kind of relate back to the movie a little bit thematically, but they're not like all the same thing, nor do they all relate to the title of the movie or anything like that. So
okay.
Anyway, so see what you think.
All right, so let's give it a shot here.
We are the rise and fall.
All the other grades, your times were an improvement, but they're still not good enough.
Girls and boys making too much noise through the playgrounds and backgrounds and speeding through small towns and
No more complaining. No more Mr. Kimble have to go to the bathroom. Nothing. There is no bathroom.
And we got no principles. And we got no innocence. We can't even think of a word that rhymes.
Okay, now I do have something to confess.
Okay.
The last song is
Yeah.
not one that you or I have ever played on our shows.
Right.
And is by a mainstream artist who does claim Christ.
Right.
But it's from early in his career.
Yeah, it's Alice Cooper.
Okay, very good.
I'm gonna guess it was like School's Out.
Oh, very good.
Okay.
Nice. So I thought that was just enough within parameters to be flying.
Yeah, totally. No, as soon as I heard the voice, I was like, okay, that sounds like Alice Cooper.
Yeah.
So what in the world? Now, so the movie's Kindergarten Cop.
Oh, very good. Very good.
The first song was Criminals and Kings by Stellar Cart.
Oh, my goodness. Could he go all the way?
Now, the middle song is the one I'm struggling with because it's like I know it, but it's not at the tip of my tongue.
Right.
So I'm going to play the stew again so that I can focus on the middle song without using the song number 2 cheat.
Okay.
Okay, so here's everything once more.
All the other grades, your times were an improvement, but they're still not good enough.
Girls and boys making too much noise through the playgrounds and backgrounds and speeding through small towns.
No more complaining. No more Mr. Kimble have to go to the bathroom. Nothing. There is no bathroom.
We got no principles. And we got no innocence. We can't even think of the rhymes.
All right, so the band of the second one is Children 18-3.
Oh, very good. Very good.
But I can't think of the song name. I'm going through like the song lists of theirs in my head to pull it out, because I mean it's like I know the song. Yeah, making too much noise. Yeah. I get that. I
just dropped something on my desk and made a loud bang.
Oh, I didn't hear it. I was talking, so I didn't hear it.
I did not drop a heavy object on my desk and make a loud bang noise. That did not happen.
So
these are not the droids you're looking for.
Let me see. Criminals and Kings, Stellar Cart. Yeah, I don't know the name of the Children 18-3 song, but I got everything else.
Right. I'm very impressed. I'll give you full credit for that.
So I'm feeling good about that. Now the theme, blank the blank. That's Tom is trying to give me a hint. Blank the blank.
Yeah, for the song title.
Yeah.
Of course, blank.
Oh,
sounds like that could be anything.
Is it Don't Stop the Music?
Close. That's almost the title. Ha. Your music's stupid.
Oh, Don't Mock the Music.
There
we go. Okay. Yeah. All right. Now, there's like a little bit of a school theme, but
well,
is it kids? No,
really.
Because Criminals and Kings wouldn't feed into that.
No, I mean, like I said, they all kind of relate separately to the movie. Not all of them relate in the same way.
Yeah, I'm not sure. The theme aspect of it is eluding me.
Well, that's okay. It's just kind of a bonus. But yeah, I mean, you got Children 18-3 because obviously it's set in kindergarten.
Kids,
so
right.
And it also says girls and boys making too much noise, which I thought was just kind of a boon. I didn't do that on purpose, but it sounded cool. Then you have criminals because they're looking for a criminal,
Oh, right.
And then the last one is, school's out. It's all set in a school.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Like I said, they all kind of relate separately. I kept on looking for all songs that related to school or all related to class, and nothing.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I ended up with.
No, that's good. That was a good one this week.
Yeah.
Mostly because I knew most of them.
Right. Don't get me wrong. I'm all on board with that. I'm impressed. It does tell me that I need to start making them maybe a little harder, but we'll see.
Yeah. Well, this is how I feel right now.
Sometimes I amaze even myself.
So there you go.
Thank God for that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, at least at times I don't feel like this.
I see your point, sir. I suggest a new strategy, R2. Let the Wookiee win.
There you go.
So does that mean I'm the Wookiee?
There are worse things to be called.
This is true.
Think about it.
And the plus is if I was Chewie, I could totally take you.
Exactly. Exactly.
You gonna do something or just stand there and bleed?
Oh man, too much fun.
Too much fun.
Yes, I am. Tom says more Star Wars clips. How about this?
You don't know the power of the dark side.
There you go, Tom. More Star Wars clips for you.
We are officially the nerdiest Christian rock podcast ever.
Well, here, let's see if you guys know what this is from. Do you know what that's from?
I think I do. Is that from The Princess Bride?
It is.
Yes, I've seen that movie way too many times.
Absolutely.
Ironically enough, I don't think I've seen it in 10 years, but still.
Yeah, when he introduces Buttercup, when Prince Humperdinck introduces Buttercup, that's when that is. So, well, that is going to do it for this episode of the Rock in a Hard Place podcast. While Paul mumbles something behind me.
Sorry.
No, it's all good. I just want to make sure we're okay.
Yeah, I'm all good. I'm not having a stroke or anything. I'm
All
all good.
right, just checking, making sure. It's all good. So, yeah, if you want to get a hold of us, there's many ways to do so. You can hit us up at facebook.com/Rock in a Hard Place podcast. You can email us, rockinahardplacepodcast@gmail.com, or you can check out our website, rockinahardplacepodcast.com. If you're listening to this, there's show notes that you can click on the links, and it'll take you to all of those places. The videos on YouTube have actually been kind of increasing in viewership, and we got a random comment from a relatively new listener who really enjoyed our Switchfoot episode that we posted up on YouTube. So
nice.
So that was good. It was neat to see just a random comment. That episode, I think, had like 30-some views the last time I checked.
Wow.
So, nice. That's it's pretty cool. We're excited about that. If you want to just see two fat guys sit and talk to each other, well, this is the show for you.
Yes, it is. And if you like them slightly balding, well, then you are in luck, my friend.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So, yeah, we're about at an hour and a half now, so we should probably look at shutting things down. I guess there's just one thing left to say. I'm Chris Cooner.
And I'm Paul Gibson.
And we will see you, Lord willing, next week.
Thank you.